I'm going to show you one of the cleanest mind reading effects you've ever seen. Now I'm going to show you a shortened performance, but I promise you nothing method related was cut out. After that, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. After I show you the performance, I want you to leave your opinions on both the effect and what your opinion is on what the method might be. Not what the method is, but what your opinions are on how clean it is, what kind of sacrifices there could be, and that sort of stuff. So after you've seen the performance, leave a comment with that. And then when you watch the reveal, go reply to your own comment and just tell me how your opinion has changed. Now that you've seen the method, has anything changed on how you feel about the effect or the method? Here's a performance of the effect.
You're gonna read my mind?
I'm gonna try. Let everyone know we've never met before, right guys?
Have never met before.
Now don't tell me anything about yourself, okay? I like to start usually with names, right? But don't tell me your names. I'm gonna try to see what I can pick up on. And now each of you focus on the first letter of your name for me, okay? I wanna use a B. Who's a B?
Yes!
Who's a B? For some reason, this is weird, I see a tall building, like, I'm not really sure why. It feels like we're in New York.
Oh, no way, are you serious?
Is it Brooklyn? I want to try with you now. Sometimes it doesn't always make sense. I see a farm, chicken, no, turkey. There's a turkey. Okay, imagine you're at a store, right? And you see a cashier and they have their name tag on. And imagine it's your name spelt on there. Oh, there we go. It's Grace. Is that right?
What's going on? Yeah? I know. This is crazy.
Now that you've seen the performance, go leave a comment and let me know what you thought about the effect and how you feel about what the method might entail, what the sacrifices and what the benefits could be of this method solely based on the effect.
What are you up to?
Nothing.
We're on this, so nothing.
Very nice.
We were on TikTok Live where we got banned.
And so your name was Grace and
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Very nice. Nice to meet you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye. He was nice. See, we got somebody good.
No.
You're gonna read my mind?
I'm gonna try. You guys up
Okay, let's
for it?
check this out.
You guys up for it?
Oh yeah.
And now that you've seen the method, let me know how your opinions have changed after you've seen the method. Quick pause in your regularly scheduled program. I just wanted to quickly announce that I will be hosting another exclusive group lesson at this date and time right here. Now, if you don't know how the lessons work, every participant gets their own 10-minute exclusive block to talk one-on-one with me, where I can answer any questions they have card magic mentalism related. I can critique your sleights and effects, help you with effects, or any other questions you might have. Not only that, you get to watch the entire lesson and learn from all the different questions and subtleties and effects that I might go over while answering everyone else's questions. And to top it all off, at the end of every lesson, there is a bonus 20-30 minute jam session where you jam with myself and all the other attendees. You get more opportunities to ask questions, and sometimes you even get some incredible bonus effects that I teach that I haven't taught anywhere else. Now, if you are interested in the next group lesson, make sure to go sign up at the link in the description. There are only 10 spots available, so spots will fill up quickly, so make sure you jump on it, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the next lesson. What is good, guys? It is Reed and welcome back to another video. Today I got an awesome video. This is Dear Magicians episode 8. Have realistic expectations. Now this is probably the most excited I've been for a Dear Magicians video. This topic in particular about your expectations covers everything in magic. So many different topics, from high expectations to low expectations, to your performances, to your effects, to your methods, to propless mentalism, a whole array of different things. Now the point of these Dear Magicians videos is sort of a rant / open letter to you magicians, just to give you guys something to think about, some food for thought, some opinions of mine on certain subjects, sometimes controversial, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Now this is definitely going to be an awesome episode of Dear Magicians, so if you'd like to see more like this, make sure you hit that like button, drop me a comment. Now if you guys would like to check out some private lessons or channel memberships, you can down at the links in the description. So guys, with all that said, let's not waste any more time and let's get right into the video. Dear Magicians, have realistic expectations. Now, what do I mean by this and realistic expectations? Well, let's start with the example that we had at the beginning. I showed you an effect, one of the cleanest mind reading effects you'll ever see. Now, like I said, I cut down that performance just to give you a quick, snappy performance to watch, But you can watch the full performance here and you will see there is absolutely nothing else added that is method related. Nothing that was cut helps me achieve the method at all. I literally meet these girls for the very first time when you see this video. Now the purpose of this exercise was hopefully to see how our expectations are affected by the reality of the situation. And it's also to illustrate how oftentimes us magicians can have such unrealistic expectations about effects, reactions, and in particular, methods. This video I'm going to be talking about all these different kinds of things. So look at your first comment, or if you didn't comment, how that initial effect made you feel. I would hypothesize you probably felt, wow, that was super clean. Maybe you suspected there's something else going on and I'm misleading you. Maybe you had no idea how it was done. Maybe you think this is the holy grail and the best possible mind reading, and you want me to release this to the magic community and explain this new groundbreaking way to read minds. Who knows what you thought? Maybe you thought there's technology involved. All kinds of different assumptions that you've made based on watching that effect. And another word for assumption is expectations. Our assumptions are fueled and fuel our expectations. And then one of the main points I want to illustrate is I'm going to guess one of the biggest themes between some of the comments, or at least what I expect to see, and maybe you guys will prove me wrong, but I expect to see several people who feel like the power of the effect has been reduced because of the method. Now, it's not to say that you saw the method, so obviously the effect doesn't hit as hard, because that's obviously the case. And if you're a balanced magician, even after you've seen the method, you should still be able to see how the effect is really strong. But what's different about this method is how impractical it is. How it's not something that realistically any of you are ever going to do, or ever going to be able to do. How it's never something that I could do on the streets. How it's never something I could do in a show. All these limitations. This is an effect that is so clean, and when I first posted just the performance, people went crazy asking me how this was done, trying to figure it out. But then when I revealed it in Behind the Screens episode 4, highly recommend that, one of my favorite videos on the channel. I reveal the method to this and a ton of other awesome Omegle effects. But when I revealed this, a lot of people did appreciate the beauty behind the method. But what it does with a method like this that's so impractical, so difficult, a lot of magicians start to say, well, the effect isn't as good because the method isn't as good. But that's not the case, guys. You need to separate these things, right? And the biggest problem is you set your expectations too high. You let yourself get roped into the, oh my God, this is so amazing. Oh my God, I'm watching this through a video, and not thinking that about the fact that there could have been editing, there could have been this, there could have been that. And you just let these thoughts fuel you. You start to feel like, oh my God, this is the best trick I've ever seen. This method must be incredible just because of what I've presented. And you start to lose a grip maybe on even reality and what's possible, and understanding that you need to have a bit more realistic expectations when it surrounds methods and effects, right? There isn't gonna be real magic. So once you see the method, your expectations, if they were set high, were probably let down. But the problem is you set your expectations too high in the beginning. I also wanted to illustrate how just because you think an effect is amazing and then later you find out that the method maybe isn't as practical and isn't as useful, it shouldn't affect the final effect. Maybe it affects your performance and your utilization and your ability to perform that effect, and if you're gonna buy it, but it shouldn't lower your expectations of how you felt in the moment experiencing that effect, because the people who do choose to go through with a method even as impractical as this will still pull off that same first effect that you witnessed before you knew the method to their spectators. I am launching a brand new Mentalism masterclass on my membership right here on the channel. There are these staple books in Mentalism, but they don't get as much attention, and one of those books is called Practical Mental Magic by Theodore Anneman. But I understand that not everyone is a huge reader, and a lot of people struggle learning from books. So I am gonna break down every single page, every move, every subtlety, every routine on video every single month from this book. Now, if you're someone who likes cards and wants to get into mentalism, or you're just a card worker, or you're a mentalist, experienced or inexperienced, this is the course for you. There are over 200 routines that you'll be learning in this course. I'll be teaching my variations, my handlings, and my key tips, including tips to update these into the 21st century. Now, this membership will be getting a minimum of 2 exclusive videos every single month, and there are already 5 videos up there right now, including one of my favorite effects in this entire book. To get access to these videos, you have to join the second tier of my membership. You're gonna learn some incredible effects. Now let's dive in a little bit deeper here. What exactly do I fully mean by having realistic expectations, because this applies to a ton of different things. First of all, when you set expectations, you want to have a nice balance. You don't want to set them too high so you're disappointed, and you don't want to set them too low to where you're not confident, right? You won't go out and perform because your expectations of how you're going to do and your own magic are too low. You don't want to set them too high so you get cocky, right? And you go out there and you make a mistake, or so that you hinder yourself from performing amazing things because your expectations of what should be possible and what's amazing are too high. So you'll overlook these things that you view as lower tier magic. Another important topic is keeping your expectations realistic in regards to method. And I think that was pretty well illustrated by that first exercise we did. But the point is, guys, when you see an effect, don't let yourself get carried away in this being the holy grail, the best thing that's ever existed. It might be very well great, but a lot of times magicians get caught up in this idea that there's gonna be the perfect ACAN out there. There's gonna be a way to truly see what someone's thinking of in their head. But that's just not possible. And our expectations have to be kept realistic when we're thinking about purchasing effects and when we're learning methods. Because a lot of times you'll have such high expectations and you'll be let down by the method, not because of the fault of the method, but because of the fault of your high expectations. Now you'll look back on the effect and you will think less of it because your expectations were let down. Whereas if you had regular expectations and the method met those expectations, you would probably still perform that piece of magic that is going to surpass and blow the expectations away of your audience. So it's going to hinder your ability to perform effects. You're not going to perform as many effects. You're not going to try new effects. Also, this applies to your performance and the possibilities of effects. Don't get too caught up in having the cleanest ACAN ever, having the cleanest mind reading ever. There is an extent to where those things are important. It's important to think about subtleties and justifications and all these little things that can enhance the simplest effect to make it feel that much better. Recapping, scripting, right? All these ideas. But at a certain point, you hit the point of diminishing returns where you're putting in too much time and you're not out there performing. You're getting scared because your expectations are set too high for this effect, for your performance, right? And that's going to keep you from performing, which is where you're going to learn and improve the most. Also, keep in mind the possibility, like I mentioned, of what's possible. The perfect ACAN's not possible. To really read someone's mind is not possible. So when you're performing these effects, you don't need to strive for that perfection from the mind of a magician, right? These are unrealistic expectations. Now, there is a key differential I want to make here. Look, when you're creating magic, dream big. Dream as big as you want. Dream that there's the perfect ACAN out there and try to strive for it. Now, don't let that affect you to where you're up all night trying to figure out the perfect ACAN, but let that be the basis of what you chase. Now, when it comes to performing and picking effects and choosing what to add to your repertoire and learning new magic, that's where our expectations should be kept realistic. But there is a difference when it comes to creativity. We can still, in the back of our minds, understand the laws of physics and understand what's realistic, but strive to achieve something that may be impossible, right? You shoot for the moon, you'll land among the stars, right? That sort of saying. And at the end of the day, this whole concept kind of ties back to magician brain. And if you don't know what magician brain is, I've talked about it here in another episode of Dear Magicians, how to cure your magician brain. But that's essentially the concept of thinking too much like a magician. Once you're privy to all this information, you can no longer think objectively like a spectator and not get roped into method, and really be able to think about effect, because that is what our audience is going to experience. Yes, the method might not be groundbreaking. The method might be way simpler than you thought, but if that effect can achieve what you initially felt, that's what's key. That's what your audience is going to experience. So now let's break down each of these a little bit deeper, right? So when it comes to setting expectations too high, this is where something like magician brain can really get in the way. And the big problem is that it will prevent you from trying new effects, right? You have a list of effects that you've vetted. You've vetted them for method, practicality, the style of magic, how hard-hitting they are, what the method is, and you've picked these effects that you think are the best, right? And these are what your go-tos are. And eventually, especially as you get more experience and if you're out there performing gigs, you'll oftentimes stick to those things that you're comfortable with because you'll see them as the best. And you'll compare something else to them. You'll compare one triumph to the triumph you do, and you'll never want to change because in your mind, you're seeing it from the method perspective, right? Your expectations of what the perfect triumph are so high that you're not willing to give other things a chance. And now I'm not saying you have to go and learn new magic all the time, but it's a useful tool to not only get better, but to give our audience the best magic possible, and to not miss out on great effects, because there are so many effects that inevitably you're going to miss out on some amazing workers, but do your best to try not to let that happen. And a way to do that is to not set your expectations through the roof, so that every effect you watch and every new effect that you learn and every method that you see is no longer good enough for you to start performing. That's a mistake and something that I had a lot of problems with. I'd watch effects. I've talked about I think in my recent How to Make Your Magic Better video, I talked about Craig Petty's magic button effect and how the first time I saw it, I had really low thoughts about it, right? I thought, oh, that's pretty simple and this and that, but I realized that the element of surprise and the way that that effect is thought out, it's actually a fantastic effect, and I haven't even performed it. I just know it would play super well from my experience, but my initial thoughts, until I took a step back and said, you know what? I'm in the wrong headspace, let me revisit this, and I realized, hey, yes, it's just a misprinted card, and yes, it's just really simple moves, and yes, it's similar to transposition and a double lift and all these kind of classic effects. It's similar, but the way this routine is constructed has that one element of surprise that is so awesome that it'll just make it really stand out, and it's a worker, and it's easy, and it's practical, and it's definitely an effect that is fantastic, despite my initial reaction. At the end of the day, you should only be disappointed by methods if the method and what the method promised does not come true, right? Does not hold up. If they promise you instant reset, angle proof, and all these things, and the method doesn't live up to that, okay, be disappointed in the method. But if you watch the effect and create ideas in your head of what this method you think it can do, right? You see this mind reading that I showed you at the beginning and you think, oh my God, I'm gonna be able to do this anywhere. It's the most practical, it's the best thing I've ever seen. He must be literally in their head somehow, or maybe this is the coolest new technology. You're gonna be let down, because you have created these false expectations in your head, and it's natural. It's something you're naturally going to do because you're going to get excited about new methods and new possibilities, but it's important to keep them realistic so that you don't get disappointed by the method and write off the effect. Now, setting expectations too low can equally be a problem. If you set things too low, you're not going to perform either. Just like if you set them too high, you won't be performing. If you set them too low, you're going to have no confidence in yourself or in your abilities, because your expectations of yourself are set so low that you have no hope in yourself. You're going to look at yourself and you're going to think, I'm not good enough. Now, maybe I should have put this in the too high expectations category, because if your expectations are here and you're looking at yourself low down, then you won't perform. Now, what I'm getting at is twofold. One, you have your expectations here, and so you don't practice. It takes no practice to get above those expectations and now feel like you're confident enough to go perform. Then you screw up, and then you don't want to perform anymore because you've just had an embarrassing, horrible moment, because your expectations are so low that you don't feel like you need practice, you don't feel like you need to get better. That's also a problem. On the other side of that, there's if your expectations are here and you're never trying to go above, you're never trying to meet those, you're just keeping them set so low that you're never going to go and practice to try to get better. You're never going to want to go perform. Now, for some people that's okay, but in my perspective, performing is one of the greatest joys that we can have. Now, I'm not a fan of the saying, set your expectations low, so no matter what, they'll be blown away. Because I'm a big fan of remaining positive, and if people try to equate that where they say, oh, if you're positive all the time, you'll always be let down. But that's not really the case, right? If you're positive, you can take whatever is thrown at you and take the positive out of that. I don't have expectations, I'm just positive about whatever I was given. So when it comes to a method, if your expectations are set to the floor, then of course bad magic is going to get into your repertoire, you're not going to practice well, and you're not going to perform well. So there is a level of accountability that comes with that. So now that goes to say, do you set your expectations high or low? I just think you try to keep them moderate, or you try not to set them at all. And when you see that method, you watch the effect, you take it in for what it is, look at it from the audience's perspective, and then just learn the trick. Just learn what the method is. And if it doesn't fit your style or the type of performing environments you want, that's fine. It shouldn't hinder your opinion of that effect. It's just the method is not for you, so you're not going to perform that effect. Not because the effect is bad, because the method doesn't suit you. And again, that's different from it being an actual bad method. Bad methods are bad regardless of what you viewed them. If you viewed them as bad, they can still be bad. If you viewed them as good, they could still be bad. They're just bad. Now let's talk about a few real world sort of practical examples. And I want to start with something that's been a hot topic in the magic community lately, the idea of hype. Now hype, I think, is totally fine. It's a marketing strategy, guys, and it is totally fair. People can do whatever they need to do to try to sell you something. It's up to the consumer to buy it, as long as they're not lying, I would say. With hype comes a lot of people whose expectations are influenced by all this talk about it, that now they're going to be let down because their expectations, they let them get too high. When something like Enigma came out that was super hyped, look, as much as every person and their grandmother said it was the closest thing to real mind reading and the best, I know it's not. I know there's a method. So I'm not let down when I find out it's an app. I'm not let down. I assumed it was probably an app, right? My expectations were kept realistic no matter how hyped everything got. Right, with this whole Dex thing, you know, I already know my expectations are realistic for myself. I'm not going to perform with an index, okay? But when I think of it for other people, look, it's probably a good index. Is it the best in the world? I don't know. I'm not going to make that decision. I'm going to wait and see, right? I'm not going to let my expectations go through the roof. And now when I've seen decks, because my expectations weren't unrealistic, I can make an informed decision on if it's for me and if I like it. The answer for me is no, it's not for me. It's not that I don't like it, it's just not for me. It's not something I would perform. I don't really like indexes, okay? But it's not to say the product is bad. A lot of people were trashing it, and there is some good reason to trash it. Like the build quality, that's obviously not acceptable in my opinion, but I don't want to make this a video about decks. The point is that you need to keep your expectations either realistic or have none at all, or if that's too difficult for you, which some people it will be, some people can't help but get drawn in, or some people can't help but be negative, right? Just don't set them at all. Just wait and see what it is, what the truth is, and you'll be able to judge things a lot better from a lot more of an unbiased position. Now I want to also talk about another example, which is real mind reading. You know, people are always striving in mentalism for the best mind reading. They want real mind reading. Well, it doesn't exist. And their expectations are so high. People come to me all the time. Guys, there has to be sacrifices with everything. That's what magic is. It's taking something impossible, finding a way to achieve it, and then hiding the sacrifices that allowed you to achieve it to still make it seem impossible. And with mind reading, it doesn't exist, and there has to be a sacrifice. There's nothing I hate more when someone comes to me and either sends me an effect or sees a performance of mine and says, "How did you do that?" And I am nice enough to share the method with them. Maybe I've taught it on YouTube, maybe I tell them, and they're like, "This is no good, that can't be how you did it. You know, I don't like this method, I'm not gonna do it." Oh, that's it? Like, what do you mean? I'm telling you what I did. You were so impressed by the performance, you asked me how I did it, and now I tell you and you're let down? You saw the performance, you know what I mean? Your audience is gonna have that same reaction. It's gonna feel the same if you do it properly. Right? People want to see mind reading, and then I say, here, you got to have them write it down and you got to peek it. And they're like, well, you just read it from his mind. It's like, no, I didn't. I did it the same way I just taught you, right? Your expectations are not realistic when it comes to this. I have a great story that I'm going to finish the end of this video with. Something that gets under my skin so bad, but we'll talk about it in a sec. And then the holy grail of topics for us magicians, the holy grail of our unrealistic expectations, the perfect ACAN, the Burglas effect. Guys, there is no Burglas effect. There's no perfect ACAN. If you think about the laws of physics, if a regular deck is truly shuffled by a spectator, and they truly name a random number, truly name a random card, and truly deal down to it themselves, there's a 1 in 52 chance no matter what you do. There has to be a sacrifice in one of those pieces. If you go check out my tutorial from Marcan, probably one of the closest ACANs you can perform with a deck of cards that is as close as possible to the perfect ACAN, okay? But what's the sacrifice? The only sacrifice is you have to do the dealing. The spectator can shuffle, name a random number, name a random card, you can do the dealing. And I suppose the other sacrifice is there's 2 outs. One out, the perfect out, happens the majority of the time, but there's always a chance you get the secondary out. It's still going to be a good effect, but it's not going to be perfect. But that's the chance you have to take to make the miracle happen. Aussie wins ACAN. We all know, you know, the limitations of that are the mental gymnastics that it requires, right? And the fact that the spectator can't shuffle the deck before. But the point is, you know, every new ACAN that comes out, people are let down because it looks so good in the trailer and the method doesn't stand up. And yes, I'm not saying there aren't bad methods and there aren't bad ACANs, because of course there are. But the point is, a lot of times the method's not that bad. People's expectations were just too high. And the perfect example of this is when I released my effect leg can. Now guys, leg can, if you've watched the performance, is the Burglass effect. It is everything you would want in an ACAN. But how did I do it? I used some crazy scripting with some video camera dual reality, a completely brand new method that I kind of have been exploring with dual reality through video, where the audience experiences something watching it back on video, but the person who gets it performed for has a different effect. And then I used some like super cool video editing techniques and like all these little details that I had to think about to make it all congruent and make it pass the sniff test when you watched it back on video. So if you haven't checked that out, it's a very neat video. Now this method is so impractical, would never be able to be performed in the real world, would never, like all these limitations. Some people were trashing me for that method. Again, I wasn't selling this. I wasn't lying to you about the method. I was simply testing out brand new methods in magic and came up with something that I think is super, super cool. But people were like, this is a fake ACAN, you're video editing, it doesn't count. Look, video editing is something in the 21st century we need to understand could be a part of magic and its methods. Now, obviously it's only for social media and maybe Zoom magic, but there is a market for that. You know, that original performance of Leg Can got a ton of views and was really cool. It was a really great sort of dive into new magical methods. But the point is, people's expectations when they saw that first performance were through the roof. This is the cleanest ACAN I've ever seen, I can't wait. And then the same people, when they learn the method, oh, it's no good, oh, this effect sucks. No, it doesn't. The effect was fantastic. You just are butthurt that the method isn't what you thought it was, but you had the wrong expectations. I never made any promises, you just assumed all these things. And in that same breath, I want to make an important point, guys. Don't believe everything you see on social media, especially when it comes to magic. There's nothing wrong with this. I do this as well, right? If you've watched my performance breakdowns, I've told you about effects where I've cut out part of the method because on video I'm trying to protect the method, either to respect the creator or to keep the effect strong. And when you watch something on video back over and over, it's gonna ruin the magic, right? It's like why you don't perform the same trick twice. So sometimes I'll cut things from video. So now people will watch it, it'll seem super clean on video, and that's the point, right? I'm not selling this to you as, hey, I can do this, you can't. It's for entertainment, okay? And when you watch this, you'll think all these things are possible, right? But people cut things on social media. People are using regular old methods, but they just start filming later on. People are using video editing. People are using stooges, right? People are using things that you have to keep your expectations realistic for what is happening. If someone does a perfectly clean mind reading, there's something else at play. They either had some pre-video, like pre-show, but pre-video happen, right? Where they probably just did a simple billet peek. And look, I'm not blaming any of these people who do it, because like I said, I do it too with my videos. Sometimes I cut out certain parts of methods when you're watching the street magic videos, but that's not wrong. It's for you as a magician consumer to understand that I am no different than anyone else. I don't have magical powers. You know, these reactions that I have are real. They're not reacting this way because I have some new incredible ideas or technology or magic. They're reacting that way because the old great methods work. Now let's jump into my final kind of example, and it generally has to do with propless mentalism, because I think this whole concept of realistic expectations is probably the best illustrated, and magicians have the worst trouble with keeping their expectations realistic when it comes to propless mentalism. Now I'm going to start by generally speaking about it, and then I'll get into my example. Guys, you have to keep yourself realistic with propless mentalism. In a lot of cases it is hard. It is extremely difficult to practice. It takes lots of memory work. It doesn't always hit, and you got to take risks, okay? So think about that. You're going to have to spend a lot of time learning something that's difficult, that takes a lot of memory work, that is very difficult to practice, just to have a tool that doesn't hit all the time. And I think that's a great trade-off. I think propless mentalism is worth that trade-off. Now, don't get in the comments and tell me some propless mentalism is easy, some doesn't take memory work, some hits 100% of the time. In general, most propless mentalism effects, if we're being realistic, And keep in mind, you're not Peter Turner. Keep your expectations realistic for yourself and what you're going to be able to perform. I'm not saying don't strive to be Peter Turner, but keep your expectation realistic, okay? Just because he tells you it's 100% surefire doesn't mean it's going to be for you. Just because he tells you it's easy doesn't mean it's going to be for you. The reason I bring this up is propless mentalism is one of the hottest topics. When I do my private lessons, guys, and if you'd like one on propless mentalism, you can check them out at the link below. A lot of what people come to me to learn is propless mentalism. And the first thing I tell them is, look, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to hit all the time. You have to understand, I lay it out. These are the realistic expectations for what you can expect. Are you willing to put in the work? And have you changed your mind on if this is for you? Because that's very possible. And people think it's the holy grail, it's the best. For me, propless mentalism is the best when it's mixed in with other mentalism, when it's mixed in with other effects and other methods and classics and billet work and all these things. It's used as a great sprinkle to make the audience think, well, if he could do that without any props, then the props must not have mattered in the other routines. And again, everything I say in every video on my channel, guys, is my opinion and my experience, okay? If you disagree with me, that is okay. I would love to have a discussion with you in the comments, civil discussion. If you watch a video of me performing and you say, wow, I love the reactions he gets, I love his style, I love the effects he does, then my advice is probably good for you. If you like, the way I do things here, then my advice is probably decent for a lot of you guys. If you watch my magic and you don't like the amazing reactions I get, that's totally fine. Probably don't take my advice then. But I think my street magic speaks for itself. Now, the example I want to paint in more detail is about a private lesson client I had one time. And he booked just one session with me. It was just a one-off. Most clients, we do several sessions together. But he basically came to me and all he wanted to know was secrets. And look, if that's what you want to pay me to do, to just tell you some secrets to how I did certain effects, I don't mind. I'll tell you them. And so the whole lesson was him, how did you do this effect? I did a billet peak. How did you do this effect? I did a one ahead. How did you do this effect? And every time without fail that I'd tell him a method, you could see the disappointment in his face. He would, after like 45 minutes of me telling him methods, he was like, so do you have any more? And I'm like, I just shared with you some of my best effects and you want more. And he's like, yeah, but do you have anything like really good? And I'm like, I just showed you some of the best effects that people can perform. And you want more? And the reason he felt that way is because his expectations are so in another planet. His expectations were not at all realistic, and you can see how it affected him. He's never going to perform any of those effects. He's never going to give them a second look. And think about the hypocrisy. He was so incredibly impressed by those effects that he paid money to have me tell him how I did it. When a lot of them I tell exactly how I do it on YouTube for free. But he paid money for me to tell him how I did it, just to be disappointed and never use and never perform any of them and completely disregard it. And that's on him, okay? But I just don't want you guys to fall into that same trap. And the thing that is probably my biggest pet peeve of all is when people come to me, and I kind of mentioned this a bit already, but when people come to me, particularly when it's about how other people, other magicians achieve mentalism effects online. Because they'll send me a video and they'll say, how did he do this? And all you see is a 10-second clip of a guy looking at someone saying, think of your crush for me. Okay, I'm thinking it's, and then they say a name and they hit it and the person freaks out, amazing. And I tell them, look, I can't tell you how he did it. There's so much context that is missing. Obviously, they're not a real mind reader, so there was some kind of peak, some kind of app, some kind of technology, something involved that simply happened before, and they just showed you this part. And that is what you should do for social media. That is great for social media clips. But you guys have to be realistic when you watch these things. I'll tell them this and they'll fight with me. But how do people who don't have them write anything do it? Okay, then they maybe use an app. But no, there was no phones. How did they do it? Well, maybe it was a propless thing, but that's not going to work in this way. Like, that's not really possible to be done proplessly. No, but it worked every time. Okay, this is a problem with you. That's not realistic. That can't happen. So I hope at the end of the day, the message that you guys take away from this is, look, just set your expectations realistic and you'll be much better off when it comes to method, performance, and effect. Keep your expectations realistic and you won't be let down and you'll be performing the best magic, and at the end of the day, you will be objective. And that is what it comes down to when you're picking what you should do and what you should perform. You gotta be objective and think about it from both the magician side and the audience side. Alright guys, that is it for Dear Magicians episode 8. This was a monster video. This rant went way longer than I expected. Honestly, I just had so much to say. This is a topic that is really, really important to me, and I hope I clearly communicated to you my ideas here. I'd love to have a discussion with you guys, so please drop any comments and we'll have a discussion. I'd love to hear what you guys think on this topic. I know it's a bit of a long video, but if you made it this far, I really appreciate you guys watching this video. If you would like to check out some channel memberships or join a private lesson where we can talk about anything card magic or mentalism related, those links are in the description. And with all that said, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.